No human was worth her trust until he gave everything. Shattered boundaries. Lyra Voss stood at the observation deck of Helios Station, her silhouette stark against the kaleidoscope of stars beyond the reinforced glass. The rotating rings of the station hummed beneath her feet, a constant reminder of humanity's technological triumph and its limitations. Her reflection showed a woman with copper-brown hair cropped short against her neck, sharp green eyes that missed nothing, and a mouth that rarely smiled anymore. "Dr. Voss, they're ready for you in Chamber 3, announced the station's AI. Its voice calibrated to sound pleasant but still unmistakably artificial. Lyra nodded, though the gesture was unnecessary. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." 5 minutes to prepare herself for what Command had called the most significant xenobiological partnership of the decade. 5 minutes to steel herself against the memories of her last significant partnership, the one that had left 3 colleagues dead and her reputation barely intact. The corridors of Helios were deliberately designed to mimic Earth's natural environments. Curved walls painted in gradients of blue and green, ambient sounds of distant water, even carefully cultivated moss in recessed wall panels. All of it engineered to keep humans sane during long deployments in deep space. None of it worked for Lyra anymore. Chamber 3's doors parted with a soft hydraulic sigh. Inside, Admiral Thandal stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his dark skin contrasting with his platinum uniform. Beside him was Dr. Elijah Frost, the station's head synopsychologist, looking uncomfortable as always in formal settings, but it was the third figure that commanded Lyra's attention. Floating in a specialized containment sphere filled with opalescent liquid was the being called Zephyr. Approximately 2 meters in length, its body was reminiscent of Earth's cephalopods, but with 12 tentacles of varying lengths instead of 8. Its skin shifted between shades of deep blue and violet, occasionally pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that Lyra recognized as a form of communication. "Dr. Voss." Admiral Thandal's voice cut through her observation. "I believe you've studied the Neridian physiology files we sent." "Yes, Admiral," Lyra replied, keeping her voice professional despite the knot forming in her stomach. Though the files neglected to mention why a Neridian would volunteer for a joint mission with humans. Their kind typically avoids direct contact with us. A ripple of light cascaded across Zephyr's skin, and the translator affixed to its containment sphere activated. Perhaps because not all of us believe isolation is the path to understanding. Came the translated response, the voice neither male nor female, but something melodiously between. "Just as not all humans share your evident mistrust, Dr. Voss." Lyra's jaw tightened. She'd forgotten that Neridians possessed limited telepathic abilities, especially when it came to surface emotions. "My apologies," she said, not meaning it. "I just prefer to understand the motivations of those I'm expected to work with." Admiral Thandal cleared his throat. The Proxima Centauri Accords required joint investigation of the energy fluctuations affecting both our settlements. The Neridian High Council and Earth Diplomatic Corps agreed that pairing our leading xenobiologist, that's you, Dr. Voss, with their most accomplished energy specialist, Zephyr, gives us the best chance of identifying the source. Elijah stepped forward, his lanky frame seeming to fold in on itself as he spoke. "The partnership is temporary, Lyra. 3 weeks on the Meridian outpost, analyzing the anomalies, then back to your regular duties." 3 weeks. Lyra's eyebrows rose. The briefing said 5 days. Another cascade of light across Zephyr's form. "The situation has worsened. 5 of our deep-water settlements have been abandoned due to the fluctuations. Your colony on Proxima has reported 17 cases of unexplained radiation sickness." For the first time, Lyra noticed the subtle pattern of distress in Zephyr's movements, the way its tentacles curled slightly inward, the darkening at the edges of its skin. Whatever was happening, the Neridian was genuinely concerned. "The shuttle leaves in 2 hours," Admiral Thandal said, ending the discussion. Dr. Frost will provide you with the specialized equipment for maintaining Zephyr's environmental needs. I suggest you both use this time to acclimate to one another's presence." With that, the Admiral departed, leaving Lyra with Elijah and the floating alien who could apparently read her emotional state. "I'll get the equipment," Elijah murmured, giving her shoulder a sympathetic squeeze before hurrying out. Silence fell between human and Iridian. Lyra crossed her arms, studying the beam before her with clinical detachment. "You've suffered a betrayal," Zephyr stated, its lights pulsing gently. "By one of my kind." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Stay out of my head. I cannot help what you project so loudly. But I was not reading your thoughts, merely observing the emotional scars you carry. They have a distinctive pattern." "Well, observe less," Lyra snapped. "We have a job to do, and my personal history isn't relevant." Zephyr's tentacles moved in what might have been the equivalent of a shrug. "Everything that shapes us is relevant, Dr. Voss. The energy anomalies we're investigating do not exist in isolation. They interact, they influence, they change the fabric around them. As do we all." Lyra uncrossed her arms, approaching the containment sphere. "Let's get one thing clear. I'll work with you because I have to. I'll share my findings, coordinate our research, and maintain your environmental controls. But I won't be sharing my life story, and I certainly won't be leaving myself vulnerable to telepathic probing." The Neridian's skin darkened slightly, a reasonable boundary. "Though I should clarify that my abilities allow me to sense strong emotions, not thoughts. To access your thoughts would require physical contact and your consent." "Well, that won't be happening," Lyra said firmly. "Indeed. Now shall we discuss our approach to the investigation? I've been monitoring the frequency patterns of the anomalies, and I believe there's a correlation between the severity of the fluctuations and the orbital cycle of the gas giant that your people call Mendel." Despite herself, Lyra felt a flicker of professional interest. She moved to the chamber's data terminal, pulling up the latest readings from Proximub. "Show me what you found," she said. As Zephyr began explaining its theories, Lyra found herself reluctantly impressed. The Neridian's understanding of quantum particle interactions was far beyond current human science. Its tentacles created intricate patterns that the translator sometimes struggled to convert into technical terms. 2 hours later, they boarded the shuttle bound for Meridian Outpost, Zephyr secured in a mobile containment unit that Lyra had insisted on checking personally 3 times. The small transport vessel had been modified to accommodate the Neridian's needs, with specialized atmospheric controls and quantum dampeners to protect its sensitive nervous system during the jump to sublight speed. As the shuttle detached from Helios Station, Lyra stared out the viewport at the receding structure, wondering if she was making another catastrophic mistake. The last time she trusted a non-human entity with her research, it had resulted in the theft of classified biogenetic formulas and the deaths of researchers who had been more than colleagues. They had been friends. "The vibrations from your thoughts are causing ripples in my containment fluid," Zephyr observed from its tank beside her. "Perhaps you would benefit from the meditative techniques my people use during deep dives." Lyra turned to face the Neridian. "I told you to stay out of my head. I am not in your head, Dr. Voss. I am merely stating a physical fact. Your emotional state is affecting the molecular composition of the water around me. It is uncomfortable." For a moment, Lyra felt a flash of guilt, followed immediately by suspicion. Was the creature manipulating her? "I'll try to contain my emotions better," she said stiffly. Zephyr's skin lightened slightly. "That would be appreciated. In return, I will attempt to filter the emotional projections I receive from you." A mutual accommodation. As the shuttle accelerated toward the jump point, Lyra found herself studying the alien being. Its motions were graceful, purposeful, unlike the random movements she'd observed in Earth's octopi. There was something almost hypnotic about the rhythmic pulsing of its bioluminescence. "Why did you really volunteer for this mission?" she asked suddenly. Zephyr was silent for a moment, its lights dimming to a soft glow. "Because my people are dying," Dr. Voss. The energy fluctuations are disrupting the telepathic networks that sustain our communal consciousness. Without those connections, we begin to fade. I volunteered because I believe there is more to these anomalies than random natural phenomena, and because I believe that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the most unlikely partnerships. The raw honesty in the response caught Lyra off guard. Before she could formulate a reply, the shuttle's captain announced their approach to the jump point, preparing for sublight transition in 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the viewport stretched into brilliant streams of light, and Lyra felt the familiar disorientation of sublight travel. Beside her, Zephyr's containment unit hummed as the quantum dampeners engaged, protecting the sensitive being within. Somewhere ahead lay Meridian Outpost and the source of the mysterious energy fluctuations. Somewhere ahead lay answers, and if Lyra's instincts were correct, dangers that neither human nor Neradian had anticipated. She glanced once more at her alien companion, noting how its tentacles had drawn close to its body in what appeared to be a protective posture during the jump. Perhaps there was one truth they already shared. In the vast emptiness of space, everyone was vulnerable. Quantum bonds. The emergency lights of the escape pod bathed Lyra's face in crimson as she frantically worked the controls. Behind her, Zephyr's containment unit had cracked during their desperate flight from Meridian Outpost, the opalescent fluid leaking onto the pod's floor in steadily growing puddles. Status report, Lyra demanded of the pod's rudimentary AI. Structural integrity at 64%. Life support functioning at minimal capacity. Beacon active, but signal strength compromised by atmospheric interference. Lyra glanced over her shoulder at Zephyr. The Neradian skin had dulled to an alarming gray-blue, its tentacles barely moving. Without the specialized environment of the containment unit, Zephyr couldn't survive more than a few hours. "Hold on," she muttered, punching coordinates into the navigation system. "There's a Class M planetoid in this system. If I can get us there." The pod shuddered violently as they entered the planetoid's atmosphere, throwing Lyra against the control panel. Pain blossomed across her forehead, warm blood trickling into her eye. She wiped it away impatiently, focusing on the rapidly approaching surface below. "Brace for impact," she shouted, though she wasn't sure if Zephyr could even hear her anymore. The crash sent Lyra tumbling across the pod's interior. When she regained consciousness, smoke filled the cabin, and warning alarms blared in discordant harmony. She pulled herself to her knees, immediately searching for Zephyr. The containment unit had shattered completely. Zephyr lay in a shallow pool of the remaining fluid, tentacles spread limply across the metal floor. The Neradian's chromatophores had ceased their pulsing entirely. No. Lyra crawled to Zephyr's side, her scientific mind racing through possibilities. The planetoid's atmospheric radar showed oxygen levels similar to Earth's, but with higher concentrations of nitrogen and trace elements that might be toxic to the Neradian. But there was something else in the readout that caught her attention. High levels of electrical activity in the atmosphere, and unusual mineral deposits that seemed to be generating their own magnetic fields. In a flash of intuition, Lyra realized what she needed to do. Ignoring her own injuries, she gathered Zephyr's limp form in her arms, the Neradian's skin cold and slick against hers. She triggered the pod's emergency hatch, which opened with a reluctant groan to reveal a landscape of crystalline formations glowing with internal light. The air that rushed in was surprisingly warm, carrying scents of ozone and something resembling cinnamon. Lyra stepped out, cradling Zephyr against her chest, and headed toward the largest crystal formation about 50 meters from the crash site. "Please let this work," she whispered as she approached the towering crystals. The formation hummed with energy she could feel vibrating through her bones. As she drew closer, Zephyr's tentacles twitched slightly. "That's it," Lyra encouraged, quickening her pace. "Feel that? It's energy, pure energy." When she reached the base of the crystal formation, Lyra carefully placed Zephyr against one of the glowing structures. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, The Neridian's skin began to lighten, faint patterns of bioluminescence returning to its surface. Lyra exhaled in relief, sinking to her knees beside her alien companion. Good. Now just absorb whatever it is these crystals are emitting. I'll figure out our next move. You touched me. Zephyr's translated voice was weak but unmistakable, emanating from the portable translator Lyra had clipped to her suit before their evacuation. It was that or let you die, Lyra replied, suddenly uncomfortable with the implications. Physical contact with a Neridian meant telepathic connection, something she had vowed never to allow. I saw. Zephyr's tentacles curled slightly. I saw what happened on Europa Station. I felt your pain. Lyra stiffened. That was private. Not by choice. The connection forms automatically upon contact with my kind. Zephyr's color was improving by the second, the crystal's energy clearly beneficial to its physiology. The Neridian researcher you trusted, Nyx, betrayed not only you and your colleagues but our ethical codes as well. I don't want to talk about it, Lyra said firmly, standing to survey their surroundings. The crystalline landscape stretched in all directions, formations of varying sizes creating a forest of light and energy. In the distance, what appeared to be a mountain range shimmered like a mirage. We must talk about it, Zephyr insisted, one tentacle reaching out to touch the crystal beside it more firmly. Because what Nyx stole from your research facility, the biogenetic formulas, are connected to the energy anomalies we've been investigating. That stopped Lyra cold. What? How? Zephyr's skin pulsed with renewed strength. The formulas were meant for targeted genetic therapy, correct? To repair damaged neural pathways in human brains. Yes, but Nyx modified them. Combined them with Neridian biotechnology to create something new, a way to amplify telepathic abilities across vast distances. The energy fluctuations are not natural phenomena. They are the side effects of this technology being tested. Lyra's mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't seen before. The pattern of the anomalies, the specific frequency of the fluctuations, the way they seemed to intensify near settlements with high concentrations of telepathic species. Why? She demanded. What purpose would that serve? Zephyr's skin darkened momentarily. Control. With amplified telepathic abilities, a small group could influence the thoughts of entire populations across star systems. My government sent me to investigate because they suspected interference, but they did not know the source. And you didn't think to share this theory with me earlier. Lyra's anger flared. Would you have believed me when you so clearly distrusted anything connected to my species? The question hit Lyra like a physical blow. Would she have, or would she have dismissed it as manipulation, a distraction from whatever she imagined the Neridians' true motives to be? Before she could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. In the distance, one of the larger crystal formations suddenly shattered, fragments exploding outward with devastating force. What was that? Lyra gasped, instinctively moving to shield Zephyr. They found us. Zephyr's tentacles curled protectively around its central mass. The same faction that Nyx works for. They must have tracked our escape pod. Another crystal formation exploded, closer this time. Lyra helped Zephyr to its equivalent of feet, a graceful balancing on the tips of 3 tentacles. We need to move, she said urgently. Can you travel? Yes, but slowly. These crystals, they are not just energy sources. They are living entities, a network similar to my people's telepathic communities. I can communicate with them, perhaps use them to hide us. Lyra hesitated only briefly before nodding. Do it. I'll carry our supplies. As they moved deeper into the crystal forest, Zephyr placed a tentacle on each formation they passed. Gradually, the crystals behind them dimmed, while those ahead brightened, creating a path that only they could see. They're helping us, Lyra realized, watching the phenomenon with scientific fascination. They recognize a kinship with me. And through me, with you, Zephyr explained. The connection we formed when you touched me, it lingers. They sense it. Lyra wanted to deny the connection, to insist that it had been merely a moment of emergency contact with no lasting significance. But she could feel it herself, a subtle awareness of Zephyr's emotional state, a faint echo of the Nereidian's thoughts at the edges of her consciousness. They reached what appeared to be the heart of the crystal forest, a clearing where thousands of smaller crystalline structures surrounded one massive formation that towered at least 30 meters high. The central crystal pulsed with a rhythm reminiscent of a heartbeat. "This is it," Zephyr said, moving toward the central formation, the nexus of their consciousness. "If we can explain our situation, show them the threat the energy weapons pose to all telepathic networks, they might help us." "How?" Lyra asked, still scanning their surroundings for signs of pursuit. "By amplifying our message, sending a warning to both our peoples at once, too strong and widespread for Nyx and his faction to intercept or block." Zephyr extended a tentacle toward Lyra. "But it would require a complete telepathic bond between us. No barriers, no secrets. Everything I am would be open to you, and everything you are to me." Lyra stared at the offered tentacle, her heart pounding. The memory of her last experience with a Nereidian's telepathy, the violation of her mind, the theft of not just research but personal memories, made her physically ill. "I can't," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I just can't." In the distance, another crystal exploded, closer than before. Their pursuers were gaining ground. Zephyr's skin rippled with understanding. "Then we find another way. I would never force a bond on you, Lyra Voss." The use of her full name, spoken with such respect, moved something within her. Zephyr had seen her worst memories, her deepest fears, and yet had not judged her for them. A beam of energy sliced through the crystal forest, narrowly missing them. Shadowy figures appeared at the edge of the clearing, humanoid in general shape, but with unmistakable Nereidian features melded with cybernetic enhancements. "Hybrids," Lyra gasped, recognizing the horrific fusion of species that should never have been compatible. "What Nyx has been creating with your stolen research," Zephyr confirmed grimly. "Abominations that can telepathically control others while physically navigating human environments." The hybrids raised weapons that glowed with the same energy as the crystal formations, but corrupted, sickly green instead of pure blue-white. In that moment, Lyra made her decision. She reached out and grasped Zephyr's tentacle. "Together," she said simply. The bond formed instantly, a rush of consciousness that threatened to overwhelm her. Zephyr's mind expanded into hers, ancient, complex, beautiful in its alien patterns. Memories that were not her own flowed through her, the deep-water cities of Nereid, the communal joy of shared thoughts, the harmony of a species that had evolved beyond the need for deception. And Zephyr experienced her mind in turn, the brilliant analytical pathways of her scientific reasoning, the depth of her capacity for loyalty, the pain of betrayal that had shaped her but not broken her. Together, they turned toward the central crystal, their minds now functioning as one. They approached it, Lyra's human hand and Zephyr's Nereidian tentacle touching the massive structure simultaneously. The crystal network responded immediately, its glow intensifying to blinding brilliance. Through their bond, Lyra and Zephyr crafted a message, part mathematical proof, part emotional plea, demonstrating the destructive nature of the stolen technology and its threat to all sentient life. The crystal nexus amplified their message, sending it outward in waves of pure thought that transcended normal communication channels. Across the Proxima Centauri system, beings both human and Nereidian received fragments of understanding, danger, location, unified resistance. The hybrids in the clearing faltered, their cybernetically enhanced telepathy overwhelmed by the pure signal emanating from the crystal network. Some collapsed, others fled. As the message completed its transmission, Lyra and Zephyr gently withdrew from the central crystal. Their bond remained, changed now from desperate emergency to something more profound, a bridge between species that had never truly understood one another. "They're coming," Zephyr said, meaning rescue rather than pursuit. "Both our peoples together. They've understood." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of it through their connection. "What happens now? To us, I mean." Zephyr's skin rippled with a new pattern, one that Lyra now understood represented hope mingled with uncertainty. "That depends on what we choose. The bond we formed, it's unprecedented. Some will fear it, others will want to study it. But I believe it represents a possibility neither of our species has fully imagined before." Lyra looked at the crystalline landscape around them, at the hybrid technology that had nearly destroyed two civilizations, and at the alien being with whom she now shared a connection deeper than any human relationship. "I choose to explore it," she said finally. "Whatever comes next." Zephyr's tentacles moved in a gesture that Lyra now recognized as joy. "As do I together. We represent something new, not human, not Neridian, but a quantum state of both." Above them, the first rescue vessels appeared in the atmosphere, bearing insignias of both Earth and Nereid. Separate ships from different worlds, yet arriving together with a common purpose. And on the surface of an unknown planetoid, surrounded by living crystals that sang with alien harmony, a human woman and a telepathic being from the oceans of a distant moon waited side by side, their minds linked in a bond that would forever change the destiny of two species. The boundaries between them had not just been crossed, but transformed, like particles in quantum entanglement, forever connected regardless of the distance between them. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.